Our story begins inside a church. Jin Yisu, the infamous traitor, finally gets shot, taken down by none other than the most unstoppable agent out there, a man known as 101. This guy isn't just strong, he's on a John Wick level. He wiped out an entire squad by himself. But beside him, in the middle of this chaos, stood his wife in her wedding dress, clutching their baby. She was wounded, but the child was safe. 101's wife knew her time was running out. She held her husband's hand and told him she had no regrets. They had their wedding, and she was ready to go. Her last request was simple but heavy: help their child live the life he chooses. Before collapsing, she whispered one final truth, that she was glad to be his wife. Meanwhile, Jin Yisu, even with a bullet in his head, was somehow still alive. Turns out, 101 staged the wedding as bait to draw Jin out, and it worked, but at the cost of losing his wife. Jin sneered, saying Cheongdo never forgets traitors, and that one day 101's son would die at the hands of Jin's son. He explained that when the old chairman finally passed, his heir would take over. But before Jin could say more, 101, with grief carved into his face, finished him off once and for all. Years passed. 101's son, Jin Yisu, is now 8 years old. And let me tell you, this kid's life is no joke. His father has him running every morning, squatting at lunch, swimming too, all at just 8 years old. Yisu even calls it child abuse. But when his dad asks why he hit kids at school, Yisu admits it's because they bullied others and mocked him for not having a mother. Seongjin, his father, flicks his forehead. He tells Yisu if he doesn't hit the mitts, there's no dinner tonight. So the boy starts punching, and honestly, he's hitting harder and faster than grown men. Later that evening, Yisu asks the question that's been haunting him. What kind of person was his mom? All his friends have moms to go out with, but he doesn't even have a photo. Seongjin pauses, remembering. He tells his son she was strong, thoughtful, smart, and loved him until her last breath. And yes, he adds how beautiful she was, so much that even Yisu notices his dad is emphasizing her looks a bit too much. Then Seongjin checks the time. It's time for work. Yisu thinks his dad is just a driver, but in reality, Seongjin is still a top-level agent. Yisu jokes that with AI driving cars now, his dad should find another job before being replaced. But when Seongjin sees his son's smile wishing him a safe trip, he can't help but smile back. It reminds him of his wife. Fast forward 12 years. Yisu is now 20, still training relentlessly. His punches are so powerful they literally burst the punching bag. His father, now older, realizes just how strong his son has become. But Yisu is tired of the endless training. He asks why his father keeps pushing him every single day. Before Seongjin can answer, the TV announces breaking news. Jin Daesong has become the new chairman of the Cheongdo group. And yes, this Jin Daesong is none other than the grandson of Jin Yisu, the man Seongjin killed years ago. Seongjin receives a message. Trouble is coming. Just like Yisu warned, now that Daesong is in power, Isu's life is about to change forever. Seongjin cancels training for the day and tells his son they're going out for dinner. Yisu is thrilled. Finally, a break. On the road, he asks if they can do this more often, maybe next week too. But Seongjin replies with a chilling line. If there's a next week, he knows what's coming. Suddenly, black cars appear, chasing them. Seongjin leads them into an empty garage. He steps out, opens the trunk, and pulls out a knife and an axe. He tells Yisu that every parent has secrets they can't share with their children, and though he wanted to tell him someday, fate has forced his hand. The cars stop, and masked men pour out. They've been sent by Chairman Jin to kill 101. One of them declares the executives need 101's head to prove their loyalty, reminding him that those in power never forget grudges. Two men rush in. 101 slices the first clean in half, then beheads the second in an instant. Despite his age, the legendary agent still fights like a monster. Yisu, stunned, can't believe his father just killed two men with one axe. More attackers charge, but 101 cuts down anyone who dares get close. His rage burns. He's ready to show them the massive gap between him and the rest. Agent 101 was tearing through masked men like they were nothing. Surrounded or not, he cut them down with ease, but they just kept coming. Yisu, still confused and overwhelmed, dropped his guard for a moment to ask his father what was happening. Right then, a masked man lunged at him, but Seongjin reacted instantly, beheading the attacker before his son could even blink. Realizing Yisu was in danger, Seongjin grabbed him and started running, carving a path through the chaos. Inside the garage, he kicked down long metal bars, sending them crashing onto the masked men behind. But he knew this wasn't the end. More enemies would arrive any second. Seongjin turned to his son and gave him clear instructions. Head to the door ahead, and at the bottom of the stairs there'd be a self-driving car waiting. He would stay behind to buy time. Yisu hesitated, torn apart by what he had just witnessed. Leaving his father alone felt impossible. And then, the nightmare escalated. An army of masked men stormed in. As Yisu ran toward the exit, Seongjin stood firm, cutting down anyone who dared approach, determined to secure his son's escape. But when Yisu reached the door, he froze again. His mind was racing. Who are these people? Why is my father killing them? He turned back just in time to see his father stabbed by 2 knives. Yet Seongjin didn't fall. Even wounded, he kept fighting. Then came another strike. A katana slashed across his middle. One of the masked men taunted him, revealing that all the evacuation routes and contacts Seongjin had prepared for this day had already been compromised. They'd eliminated everything he had built. In that moment, Seongjin's thoughts went back to his wife's final request. Protect their son, help him live the life he chooses. But now, with his body failing and enemies closing in, he believed Yisu would be next. The hope he had fought for seemed gone. So Seongjin made his final move. He pulled out a lighter. Gas canisters were scattered across the floor, filling the garage with fumes. As the masked man raised his weapon for the fatal blow, Seongjin turned toward his son one last time and said, "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you until the end." And then, an explosion ripped through the garage, a blast so massive it obliterated everything inside. Later on, word reached Jin Daesong about what Agent 101 had done. To the executives, 101 seemed insane, trying to blow himself up and take his son with him. But even they admitted, this man was no ordinary agent. And now, they knew his son Yisu was still alive. Daesong gave the order, search every hospital until they find him. He was curious, almost entertained, wanting to see just how much Yisu resembled his father. Shift to the hospital. Against all odds, Yisu survived the explosion. But things weren't calm. A nurse was being pressed by detectives, demanding answers. The nurse finally shoved them out, promising she'd inform them once he woke up. The second they left, our boy opened his eyes. Or rather, he had been pretending to sleep all along. Confused, lost, he didn't understand what was happening. That's when one detective walked in, a stunning young woman. She saw right through him, knew he was faking. Turns out, she wasn't just any detective. She was So-yeon, his childhood friend, his Nuna. She's 23, he's 20. That's why he calls her that. Back when they were kids, she dreamed of being a traffic cop. She actually started there, but after taking down some punks, her skills caught the captain's eye. Now she's Detective So-yeon. The two shared a moment, remembering how they used to play karate and how she always beat him. But then she shifted to the serious topic, his father's work. Yisu admitted he knew nothing, except that masked men had attacked him and his dad. So-yeon reassured him. She wasn't interrogating, she was worried. She promised they wouldn't question him until he recovered. You could see her worry in her eyes, even tears forming. Days passed. So-yeon visited him almost every day. One nurse noticed how often she came, staring at her with suspicion. Do we have a girl love subplot here? Nah, don't worry. It'll make sense soon. One day, So-yeon brought chicken for Yisu. Watching him eat, she laughed, saying he still loved food just like when he was little. But she also knew he was putting on a tough act. Without his father, things were going to get harder. Yisu himself started to realize it too. Without his dad, and with masked men hunting him, danger was closing in. He worried So-yeon would get dragged into it. And then, the suspicious nurse who had been watching So-yeon walked in. She said it was time for Isu's 4. But her aura was different. Her killing intent was obvious. Suddenly, she pulled out a knife and lunged at Yisu. So-yeon reacted instantly, punching her back. The nurse countered with a brutal kick to So-yeon's face. Furious, So-yeon struck again, knocking her to the ground. Things were spiraling out of control. Yisu told her they needed to evacuate immediately. As they fled, So-yeon reminded him, she's a detective. If he just told her what was going on, she could help. But Yisu thought back to his father, the way he fought, the way he killed masked men without hesitation. He knew this group didn't care about the police. The police couldn't stop them. And then chaos struck again. A massive bald man appeared, shoving Yisu to the ground. From behind, the nurse ambushed So-yeon, pinning her down. The bald man ordered the nurse to report back. She confirmed Yisu and So-yeon were trapped together. Her killing intent flared. She wanted to finish So-yeon. But in that heat, Yisu snapped. He kicked the bald man's leg away, breaking free, and dashed forward to protect his Nuna. And in that moment, our boy looked fierce. The bald man grabbed Yisu like he was nothing, tossing him around as if he were a toy. So-yeon reacted fast, firing her taser straight into him. But unbelievably, it didn't even slow him down. He dashed forward, swinging a punch at her. Yisu hurled a fire extinguisher at the man's head. The impact finally dropped him to the ground. Breathing hard, So-yeon demanded answers. Why are these people after you? Yisu told her the truth. Dozens of men like this had chased him before, and they killed his father. But So-yeon couldn't accept it. She refused to leave him, shutting him up with a firm decision. We're going to your house. Pack your things. That night, they reached Isu's home. So-yeon hadn't been there since school days. While Isu packed, fact, she sat quietly, trying to act calm but clearly shaken. Deep down, she realized this wasn't just some gang. It had to be a corporate organization, the kind the police couldn't touch. Her eyes fell on a photo, Agent 101, Yisu, and herself when they were young. She remembered how 101 had always been obsessed with training his son, keeping outsiders away. Suddenly, her phone rang. The suspect they had handed over earlier had disappeared. Before she could process it, the bald man returned, this time with reinforcements. Soyeon called for backup, but the nurse hurled a knife, pinning her phone down. Yisu rushed in. The bald man's boss sneered, shocked that his man had been beaten by a little brat. The nurse threw another knife at Yisu. It missed, but she lunged with 2 blades. Yisu dodged the first strike, but the second cut across his face. The fight dragged on. Yisu struggled. His father had never trained him with weapons, and now he was paying the price. The nurse stabbed him, but before she could finish, Soyeon pulled her gun and fired, hitting the nurse's shoulder. For a moment, she thought she had control, but the bald man's boss pulled out his own gun and shot her in the arm. He explained coldly, "If we wanted you dead, you'd already be gone." Yisu demanded to know why they were doing this. The bald man answered with his fists, pummeling him while saying it was all because of his father and mother. Yisu's mind spiraled. Was everything his father had put him through, every moment of training, just leading to this? Was it all meaningless? But then something inside him snapped back. He refused to die here. He kicked the bald man in the face, regaining his spirit. As he struck again, harder this time, one thought burned in his mind. If I had fought back then, would my father still be alive? The bald man's crew was stunned. Yisu had actually beaten him down. But Soyeon was in danger, her hand bleeding badly, needing treatment fast. The boss, fired up after seeing 101's son fight like that, decided to step in himself. One of his men reminded him not to kill the boy. They needed him alive. The boss struck forward, his punches so fast Yisu could barely react. Blow after blow landed. Yisu couldn't counter, but he endured. Then the nurse handed the boss a blade. Instead of finishing Yisu, the boss aimed for Soyeon. At the last second, Yisu stepped in, taking the slash himself to protect his Nuna. Annoyed, the boss went wild, swinging left and right, carving cuts across Isu's back. He was about to end it when suddenly an axe flew in, stopping him cold. New faces appeared, 2 men and a woman. They knew exactly who these attackers were, agents sent by Chairman Jin. The boss lunged again, but the girl blocked his strike with her own blade. One of the men warned the bad guys, "Cops were almost here. Will you keep troubling the chairman from here on?" Right then, Yisu shocked everyone. He launched forward and punched the boss square in the face. That single hit knocked him unconscious. The attackers realized they were at a disadvantage and retreated. The newcomers turned to Yisu. One man told him to come with them, promising protection. He assured Yisu an ambulance was already on the way for Soyeon, so he didn't need to worry. When Yisu asked if he could trust them, the man explained they were old friends of his father. But before leaving, Yisu picked up a phone and asked for a moment. Elsewhere, Chairman Jin was celebrating, youngest chairman in history. Shamelessly, he bragged that if the old geezer had died sooner, he could have taken over earlier. Then a video message came in, not from one of his agents, but from Yisu himself. On screen, Yisu stared him down. "So you're the one aiming for my neck? That means you're behind all of this. But even if you're some big-shot corporate boss, or even the president himself, I'm not planning to die that easily. So look forward to it." And oh boy, Yisu looked fierce. If he ever reaches his father's level, you can only imagine what kind of monster he'll become. The party brought Yisu back to their base. One of the girls there questioned why the captain had taken him in. And call me crazy, but she looked eerily similar to Soyeon, almost like they were twins. Yisu eventually woke up. The doctor explained he had just healed and warned him not to push himself too hard. The captain then revealed the truth. He was an old colleague of Isu's father. Right now, Yisu was the prime target of Cheongdo's new chairman. Protecting him wasn't just duty, it was Agent 101's dying wish. But Yisu was furious. He couldn't forgive himself for being powerless back then. The captain tried to ease his guilt, explaining that his father had prepared for death. 101 was a big shot with deep grudges against Cheongdo, and he deliberately drew their attention with his own death to buy his son time. The captain invited Yisu to join them, but Yisu refused. He couldn't trust anyone. Even in his rough condition, he got up and left. Knowing he couldn't risk going back to the hospital, Yisu stopped at a pharmacy to buy painkillers. The store owner's suspicious looks at it all. As Yisu walked through the neighborhood, he realized he was in Pisadong. Memories hit him. When he was a kid, his father had warned him about this place. Pisadong was where bad things happened, and where they stayed buried. His father's advice was clear. If you ever end up there, don't trust anyone. From behind, the pharmacy owner appeared again, this time with thugs, ready to break Isu's bones. Turns out, Cheongdo had put out a wanted poster on him. Isu managed to hide, but another man spotted him and attacked. Running through the streets, Isu noticed the people around him just laughing, not helping. The bounty had caught their interest. Who wouldn't want it? Cornered at a dead end, Isu grabbed a glass bottle, ready to fight. Suddenly, a hand waved from the next apartment, offering offering him a way out. When the thugs reached the spot, they found nothing but dust. The kid had saved Yisu. But remember, Agent 101's warning was clear. Don't trust anyone. And Yisu was about to learn why. The thugs tried to break into the kid's apartment. The kid showed Yisu a tunnel exit. Yisu followed it, only to find himself standing in front of a police station. That's when the truth hit. This kid was working with the police, trying to cash in on the bounty. In that moment, Yisu finally understood his father's warning. Rage boiled inside him. He dashed forward, striking one of the policemen down. Yisu shoved the chief down the stairs, his head smashing against the ground. He slammed the door shut behind him, locking out the others. But when he turned, the sight hit him hard, the chief's lifeless body. For the first time, Yisu realized he had killed with his own hands. And he couldn't help but wonder, why does this keep happening to him? Night fell, and more men arrived, hungry for the bounty. They broke into the building, forcing Yisu to take cover. But here's the shocking part. When they saw their chief dead, they didn't mourn. They didn't care. Instead, they were thrilled. One less rival meant the bounty was theirs alone. Yisu ran upstairs, killers chasing close behind. To slow them down, he hurled a desk, blocking their path. The second captain barked at his men to help, but greed took over. They ignored him, eyes locked on the prize. The captain reached the roof, furious. He killed the man who refused to help, then charged at Yisu with a massive axe. Yisu dodged, grabbed him, and threw him off the roof. Dead. And still, the others didn't care. One less mouth to feed. In that moment, Yisu finally understood why his father had trained him so relentlessly since childhood. It wasn't for discipline. It wasn't for strength. It was for this exact moment. The criminals surrounded him on the roof. The officer sneered, telling Yisu to accept reality. No matter what, the people around him would die. But Yisu had already accepted his fate. He knew now why his father shaped him this way. And he was ready, not just to fight, but to kill and to destroy Cheongdo once and for all. The men charged. Yisu swung the axe, cutting down the first. He dodged the second, countered, and killed him too. The officer attacked from all sides, but Yisu stood firm. Gathering his strength, he unleashed a devastating counter, dropping the officer in one blow. Only one man remained. But before Yisu could move, a blade pierced the man's throat from behind. The killer was revealed. It was the girl we saw earlier with the captain. She had been following Yisu ever since he left their hideout. Now, with blood on his hands and clarity in his heart, Yisu turned to her. He had finally accepted who he was and how this world worked. He asked her to teach him how to fight and to help him find a way to destroy the Cheongdo group for good. We shift back to Soyeon. She's speaking with her chief, who tells her to rest for now, assuring her they'll catch the ones who attacked her. But then, one of his men approaches with news. Police officers were killed in Pisadong. And yes, those were the same ones our boy Yisu took down. The chief explains bluntly, those officers were basically gangsters in uniform. He makes it clear, they're not touching that neighborhood. And right there, you see why the Cheongdo group can do whatever they want in this country. Now back to Yisu. The girl explains she and her comrades have gathered for one purpose, to take down Cheongdo. And her captain has assigned her to train our rookie. Her name? Yu Jimin. Jimin takes Yisu back to their hideout. The chairman is pleased Yisu is joining them. He explains that Isu's father, Agent 101, and he were once Cheongdo agents. 101 wasn't just strong, he was legendary. But the voices of innocent people who died because of Cheongdo haunted them. 101 and the captain began to doubt, and eventually decided to stand against Cheongdo. Introductions follow. The captain's name is Baek Jian. The guy we saw earlier is Hwang Jun. The shredded girl beside them is Hannah. And finally, their doctor and engineer, Lee Yong-hyun. Lee checks the time, 30 minutes until 9 p.m. That's when Cheongdo will make their move. Baek wants to show Yisu firsthand how they operate and expose the dark side of Cheongdo. Out of Seoul's 25 districts, Cheongdo owns 10 corporate cities. But they're not satisfied, they want more. Their ultimate goal is to build a nation of their own. Because of Agent 101, the previous chairman Jin gave up expansion. But the current chairman? He's different. He's obsessed with creating Cheongdo's nation. Their strategy is ruthless. Buy cities cheap, inflate them, and control everything. The group Cheongdo sent is almost here. Baek hands Yisu equipment once used by his father. Meanwhile, a car sits in the middle of the road. Two brothers are talking about territory. They and their men storm into a bar, demanding to see the owner, Kim Sang-bong. His son steps forward, saying his father isn't there and they should come back later. But one of the brothers slams the boy's head onto the table, ordering his men to wreck the place. Not wanting more destruction, Kim Sang-bong finally shows himself. Outside, the younger brother mocks those fleeing. But suddenly, he and his men are approached by Hwang Jun. Jun sits down calmly, telling them to speak nicely. Then, with insane speed, he kicks a stone that smashes into the younger brother, launching him back into the car. Before the other thug can react, he's cut to pieces from behind. Jimin has arrived. Another thug from the gang showed up, but Yisu was ready. He struck from behind and took him down instantly. Inside, the older brother and his men were beating Kim Sangbong mercilessly, forcing him to sign a contract. The deal? Sell his bar for a price so low it wouldn't even cover 3 months' rent. When Sangbong refused, they kept hitting him. That's when our heroes stormed in. The captain ordered them to take him to their boss. But the gang laughed arrogantly, thinking they could handle this fight. Hannah stepped forward. She wanted to test out a new blade she had acquired. Before they could even lunge, Hannah unsheathed her blade with lightning speed, cutting down 2 men instantly. Her eyes locked onto the rest. She dashed again, slicing through them effortlessly, leaving only the older brother alive. But before they could interrogate him, something triggered in his neck. He collapsed dead on the spot. The next morning, 2 men working with Cheongdo whispered about leaking information on the chairman. But they didn't realize the group was listening. Their fate was sealed. They were already dead before they could act. Back with our party, the truth came out. The older brother had died because of a poison capsule implanted in his body. Dr. Lee explained. The capsule was hidden inside an artificial tooth, connected to a receiver in his neck. That receiver doubled as a bug. If Cheongdo heard anything suspicious, they could trigger the poison remotely. Only ranked members of Cheongdo had this implant. The captain then gave orders. Jimin would take Yisu with her to cover Sinchon tomorrow. Jimin wasn't thrilled. She hated training rookies. But like it or not, our duo was about to have a special date. The next day, they arrived in Sinchon, the area where evictees lived. Jimin explained Cheongdo's tactics. They tamper with water, electricity, and infrastructure, making life unbearable so residents are forced to leave. No compensation, no redevelopment, just pure exploitation. And tonight, the Gyeoksapa gang was coming to finish the job. Jimin laid out the mission: capture the gang's executive. She warned Yisu not to let pity cloud his judgment. Evening fell. The gang arrived. The evictees fought back, but they were no match. The executive stood behind, watching the chaos unfold. Jimin reminded Yisu their target was him. But then, among the evictees, a woman and her daughter were about to be beaten. Yisu couldn't stand by. He dashed in, blocking the attack. And just like that, their cover was blown. Now you see exactly why Jimin warned him. His pity had just jeopardized the mission. Let's rewind just a few minutes earlier. Jimin's plan was flawless. She would disable the self-destruct device in the executive's neck. Yisu would secure him, and together they'd retreat cleanly. Simple, efficient. But thanks to our rookie, things went sideways. And honestly, who can blame him? He was saving lives. Even Jimin herself felt stunned, almost foolish, for thinking Yisu would stick to her plan. Now their cover was blown. Every gang member's attention locked onto them. Before one could move, Jimin dashed in, her blade flashing. The man dodged her first strike, but she kept the momentum and cut him down with the second. More attackers rushed her, while Yisu took down the thug who had targeted the woman and her daughter. The men guarding the executive began pulling back. Their mission was clear: keep him alive. As the executive tried to escape, Yisu pushed through, dropping his blocker. Jimin shouted at him to chase. If the executive got away, the mission was finished. Yisu caught up, ready to strike. But the executive dropped to his knees, begging for mercy. Wrong move. It was a feint. He countered instantly, injuring Yisu. Our boy swung his axe, but too slow. Even this weak executive dodged with ease. The man smirked, introducing himself as Cheetah. But before he could gloat further, Jimin appeared from behind, destroying the receiver in his neck. Mission saved. Later, the duo returned to the hideout with Cheetah in custody. Of course, Jimin scolded Yisu. The mission had nearly collapsed because of him. And in that moment, Yisu finally faced the truth. Despite years of training, he was still weak. Next door, Hannah was training, her blades slicing through the air with ferocity. Yisu stepped in and asked her to train him. Hannah's eyes lit up. She was excited at the request. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the big boss received word. Cheetah was missing. The thug-like leader adjusted his artificial eye, fury burning. He ordered his men to contact partners and gather reinforcements. There was someone who needed to die. Our boy Yisu started sparring with Hannah, and it was clear he was struggling. His dodges were slow, his reactions clumsy. Hannah pressed the momentum, forcing him to drop his weapon, then landed a clean strike to his head. She didn't hold back. Hannah explained his flaw. Your movements are too big. With weapons, keep it short and simple. Break the opponent's balance, don't waste energy. Yisu tried to excuse himself, saying she made it look like swinging was enough. Hannah smirked and corrected him. Just call me sister. I'm only 28. She tossed him another weapon, ordering him to return. Her rule was simple: come at her like it's real combat. Meanwhile, Lee and Captain Beck were interrogating Cheetah. At first, he played tough, claiming he wouldn't say a word. But the moment Lee picked up a pair of pliers, Cheetah's attitude changed. He spilled everything. The captain pressed him about the poison capsule. Cheetah explained explained. Months ago, their boss got a job offer from a massive corporation. They'd taken contracts before, but this one was different. It wasn't just money. They were promised security rights in a new corporate city. To accept, they had to wear a collar. The poison capsule was the price of loyalty. And then came the reveal. The boss we saw earlier was One-Eyed Jack. Jack and Huang Jian had taken control of this area. Beck handed Cheetah paper, demanding he write down the headquarters location, floor plan, personnel count, and weapons. On the other side, Jimin was carrying medical equipment to treat Isu's injuries. But when she arrived, she found him training with Hannah. Furious, she realized Isu had chosen Hannah's feedback over hers, thinking he lacked physical strength. Jimin thought bitterly about what Hannah might say, that her swordsmanship was superior to Jimin's grappling techniques. Frustrated, she stormed out. Now we shift to Huang Jian, the second boss of the area. Surrounded by children, he lived as a teacher. But thugs approached him, pulling him outside. Huang struck one of them down before learning they were working with Jack. A retired thug boss, Huang didn't recognize these new faces. They asked for his help, but he refused. He was retired, and he didn't want to return to that world. One thug explained 2 executives, including Cheetah, had already been taken down. The next target would be Jack. Huang asked for a few days to think it over. Back at the hideout, Beck laid out the plan. Gyeoksepa's headquarters was an abandoned distribution center in Gangseogu. Around 100 men were stationed there, with One-Eyed Jack deep inside the facility. Their mission: dismantle Gyeoksepa completely and eliminate Jack. The strategy was set. They would split into 2 groups, an infiltration team and a main force. Isu and Jimin disguised themselves as corporate personnel, approaching first. Their job was to stall until the main force signaled from outside. Before entering, Jimin warned Isu, "Don't touch that silicon mask. Don't talk. Just stay still." Inside, they came face to face with Jack himself. Jimin pitched their cover story, claiming their company had a special item to import. Jack raised an eyebrow. Such a proposal from a pharmaceutical company like Biogen was unexpected. Jimin offered him 1 billion upfront, but Jack wasn't fooled. He burned the card she gave him, exposing it as fake. His eyes narrowed. And now, things were about to get very interesting. Jack, realizing the card was fake, grabbed a blade and lunged at Jimin. But at the very last moment, he stopped. It was just a test. Isu nearly reacted, almost striking back, but thankfully he didn't. One wrong move and the mission would have collapsed instantly. Jack leaned back, speaking about what it takes to succeed in this world. Jimin, clearly uninterested, brushed him off. Jack continued anyway, declaring, "Keep your enemies close and your friends far away." Then we shift to the past. Jack and Huang as children, bullied, beaten, living on scraps. Huang always protected Jack, sharing the little bread they had, wondering where they'd sleep each night. They were street kids, abandoned. Jack's hatred grew, toward his parents who threw him away and the children who tormented him. As time passed, the 2 worked under gangs to survive. But the boss constantly scolded Jack for mistakes while praising Huang. Jealousy burned inside Jack. Huang tried to calm him, reminding him they should be grateful. The boss had taken them in. But once Huang left, Jack was approached by a masked man. And from that moment, Jack had the backing of Cheongdo. Back to the present, Huang reflects on those memories. Then we shift again to the past. With Cheongdo's support, Jack changed. He became a monster, a killer who obeyed every order. He didn't just kill targets, he slaughtered their families too, proving his dominance. That was the breaking point. That's why Huang walked away from the business. Now, in the present, Jack's men received a delivery. But something was off. From the truck, Hannah and June emerged. Hannah wasted no time. She beheaded one of them instantly. Support had arrived, thanks to the stalling from Isu and Jimin. Hannah dashed forward, cutting down more men with ease. Back inside, Jack kept talking about success. But then he shifted to a sensitive topic, Isu's father, Agent 101. He revealed that Agent 101 was killed by Cheongdo. Jack was about to explain the true reason why, but his men stormed in, reporting the chaos outside. Jack dismissed the couple, saying he'd be in touch once things settled. But Jimin wasn't having it. She pulled the hidden blade from her sleeve and lunged at Jack, declaring, "No need. Our business here is done anyway." Jimin's blade was inches away from Jack when one of his men threw himself forward, taking the blow to protect his boss. Jack didn't waste a second. He grabbed something and bolted. Isu tried to intercept, but Jack easily sidestepped, shoved him back, and kept running. Jimin hurled knives to stop him, but Jack just kept sprinting forward, untouchable. Isu's mind flashed back to Jack's words about his father being killed by Cheongdo. Rage boiled inside him. He dashed forward, chasing Jack with everything he had. Outside, Hannah and June were holding the line against waves waves of furious men. And oh boy, Hana never disappoints, slashing through enemies with blinding speed, cutting them down like they were nothing. Jun, steady and precise, smashed anyone who got close with his tunfas. Jun glanced at Beck, asking if it was okay to let the rookie chase Jack. Beck reminded him, Jimin isn't built for head-on fights, so Jun needed to stay focused on his role. Just then, a massive man stepped up to face Hana. She smiled. Taking down giants was always fun. The brute swung his hammer. Hana dodged effortlessly. He tried to counter her counter, but Hana blocked with ease, slashed his leg, and finished him with a clean stab to the chest. Back to the chase, Jack ordered his front men to block Yisu. But Jimin caught up fast, cutting through the blockers and clearing the path. She shouted at Yisu, "Go! Don't let him escape. We can't fail this time." Jack jumped into his car, speeding off. But Yisu wasn't letting go. He leapt onto the vehicle as it tore down the road. Clinging to the hood, he smashed the windshield open with raw determination. Yisu finally caught up to Jack. In the chaos, Jack stumbled, the car swerved into the side, and both of them went crashing down the road. Meanwhile, Huang arrived at Jack's place, only to witness the destruction our party had left behind. Back at the fight, Jack climbed out of the wreckage. His mind drifted to the past, his mother's lie, telling him to stay home and promising she'd return in a few days. She never did. He remembered the endless bullying from other kids, the pain that shaped him. Gripping his machete, Jack's eyes locked onto Yisu. He finally realized who this boy was, the son of Agent 101. Yisu demanded answers, wanting to know everything Jack knew about his father. Jack smirked and revealed 101's principle. If you want something, stake your life on it. But he added coldly that he didn't see that same resolve in Yisu. Fueled by anger, Yisu charged with his axe. Jack blocked effortlessly. Yisu was too slow. Jack dodged the next strike, countered with a brutal kick, then hurled an explosive barrel at him. Yisu staggered, regained balance, but Jack was already in front of him, faster than he looked. He covered Isu's vision with his hand and landed a clean hit to his side. Mocking him, Jack sneered, "Your father must be so disappointed in hell." Rage consumed Yisu. He tried to counter, but again his swings were sluggish. Then something clicked. Yisu noticed the way Jack held his machete. He remembered Hana's words during training. Target the wrist or hand with the shortest path. This time, Yisu struck with precision. His blade sliced Jack's hand clean, followed by a deep strike into Jack's shoulder. And for the first time, our rookie landed a decisive blow. Not bad at all. Jun and Hana were still holding off waves of thugs, barely breaking a sweat. Hana, impatient, decided she'd finish them all in one go. But just then, Huang arrived. We already know Huang, retired gangster, now living quietly. He tried to reason with them, saying he'd handle Jiaxipa's men himself, so Hana and Jun should leave. But when Hana heard Huang Bo was here, her eyes lit up. She wanted a fight. The two exchanged words, nothing too important, before lunging at each other. Hana struck first, but Huang lowered his body, dodging with ease. Even though Hana kept pressing, Huang matched her pace, countering with slow but destructive blows. Meanwhile, back with Jack and Yisu. Yisu was bleeding heavily, thinking Jack was finally dead. He reached for his comms to contact the captain, but Jack rose again, launching a surprise attack. Yisu barely dodged. Jack swung again, leaving himself wide open. Yisu seized the chance, delivering a deadly strike. But Jack wasn't done. Clinging to life, he bit Isu's arm savagely. Fed up, Yisu smashed Jack's head, finally putting him down. And yet, Jack still refused to die. With his last breaths, Jack revealed the truth. The reason Cheongdo chased Yisu and killed his father was fear. They feared Agent 101, and now they feared Yisu, knowing he could become just like him. And honestly, it made sense. We've seen what Agent 101 was capable of, even as an old man. But before Jack could reveal more, a sniper's bullet ripped through his skull. From afar, someone had ended him. At that moment, Jimin and Beck finally caught up. Back with Hana and Huang. Just as Hana was about to deliver a fatal strike, word reached them. One-eyed Jack had been eliminated. And back with Yisu, he examined the bullet wound on Jack's head. He knew it came from the side. But here's the twist. It wasn't Cheongdo. If it had been, they would have shot Yisu too. The killer was someone else, a man hidden beneath a hoodie. Who he is, and why he intervened, well, that's a mystery we'll have to uncover as the story continues. Following Jack's death, his men began collapsing one after another, the poison capsules inside them triggered. Cheongdo wasn't playing around. Their protocol was clear. When a ranked man falls, his subordinates die with him. The captain and the others returned, carrying Jack's body. Huang stepped forward, staring at the corpse of his old friend. He asked Yisu if Jack had said any last words. Yisu shook his head. Huang sighed. That's just like Jack. No words at the end. Beck then pressed Huang, asking why Cheongdo had chosen Jack in the first place. Huang explained. Jack was ambitious, willing to do anything to climb the ranks. That's exactly why Cheongdo picked him. They wanted someone ruthless, ruthless, someone who would sacrifice anything for power. Jun, curious, asked why Huang was cooperating with them now. Huang admitted he feared a future where Cheongdo swallowed everything. They already controlled half of Seoul, growing stronger by the day. He didn't want more people like Jack to be created in that process. Later, Jimin tended to Isu's wounds, scolding him for pushing himself too far. Even Beck agreed. Isu could have lost his life. Isu, confused, admitted that whenever he hears something about his father, his curiosity grows. Especially after Jack's words, that Cheongdo fears him. Beck then revealed more history. He spoke of the previous chairman, Jin Yisu, and how Cheongdo's current status was built by Agent 101, Isu's father, and Jin Yisu together. By the time Beck joined, Agent 101 was already the company's number 2. Before Agent 101, many corporations tried to raise their own agents, competing for dominance. None succeeded, because Agent 101 was simply too strong. Isu asked why his father chose that path. Beck explained that 101 came from an orphanage sponsored by the Cheongdo Foundation, but beyond that, he didn't know. Everything shifted when Jin Sung-jin, Jin Daeho's son, became an adult. He used Agent 101 and Beck to secure his succession. After that day, Isu's father went into hiding. Yet according to Beck, the previous chairman never blamed Agent 101. In fact, he loved him more than his own son. Now Isu was left in turmoil. Did Jin kill his father out of revenge? Or was there another purpose, just like Jack hinted before his death? Meanwhile, inside Cheongdo's headquarters, the secretary reported to the higher-ups, One-Eyed Jack was dead. Protocol dictated his men be eliminated as well. The news enraged Chairman Jin. His fury was building, and the storm was far from over. The Cheongdo higher-ups gathered, already plotting their next move. Their target was Gwangjin's Songdong district, the core of the redevelopment project. One of them suggested destabilizing the local public authority, weakening it enough so Cheongdo's security team could step in and take over policing. With Gyeoksepa's leader Jack gone, it was the perfect timing to spark a clash with another gang. Another executive added intel. Jack had siphoned off an entire container of drugs, hidden somewhere in Songdong's factory zone. Beat down a few stragglers, and they'd get the exact location. The true boss agreed, but his real goal wasn't just the drugs, it was to keep a close watch on those nobodies. And by nobodies, he meant our party. Back at the hideout, Jimin had been acting like a caring mom, tending to Isu for weeks. She nagged constantly, but Isu was grateful. Around the dinner table, the crew shared food, and in these 2 weeks of recovery, Isu had gotten a feel for how they lived. The captain and Hannah often went out, claiming to gather intel. Their clean clothes suggested no fights. Dr. Lee never left his room except for meals, always buried in work. June dropped by Isu's room whenever bored, promising they'd train together once Isu healed. And Jimin never stopped keeping an eye on him. Later, Jimin took Isu into the training room. She taught him basics, like how to throw a knife in emergencies. She showed her wrist device. A flick of the finger, and knives popped out. She explained that once you pull the blade, you aim for vital spots, end the fight in a single strike. Curious, Isu asked how long she'd been learning things like this. Jimin revealed she'd been training since childhood, just like him. She and Hannah grew up under Captain Beck, who taught them these deadly skills as play. Meanwhile, in Gwangjin, Songdong district, inside a bar, a kid stole a watch and handed it to the owner. The owner wasn't impressed. He wanted bigger scores. As reward, he tossed the kid a tiny piece of bread and told him to get lost. Then one of Jack's surviving men started causing trouble, drawing stares from everyone. Knowing he couldn't take them all, he stepped outside. But waiting for him were 3 men, and among them, the blonde boss, the bald man's superior. They beat the thug down, demanding the location of the drugs. At first he refused, but when the blonde boss pulled a knife to his throat, he cracked. The location spilled. The boss uploaded it to the data security team server, ordering his men to verify. Then he called out to the kid, tossing him a phone. He told the boy to sell it and keep the money, but his real task was to spread the rumor as widely as possible. Finally, the blonde boss pulled out a photo, Isu's face. He asked the beaten thug, "Was it this man who killed our boss Jack?" Late that night in the same district, police moved in to investigate the drugs siphon. But instead of uncovering evidence, they were slaughtered one by a massive gangster. Guns blazing didn't matter. This brute tore through them like paper. As he butchered them, he rambled about the corruption of the world, mocking the system itself. When one officer dropped to his knees, begging for mercy, the gangster killed him instantly. To him, the police represented an outdated, useless system. From behind, the blonde boss, masked, was quietly following this massive figure figure, watching his rampage unfold. Meanwhile, Beck and Hannah met with a contact to exchange information. The intel was about the drug's location, but both of them knew it was bait. Cheongdo was dangling this lead to lure them out. Beck hesitated at first. He knew this kind of neighborhood, where gangs tear each other apart, and he didn't want to get dragged in. But in the end, he took the information anyway. He took the bait deliberately. On the way back, Hannah questioned him. Why jump into a trap so openly? Beck explained. The country had lost trust between its people and faith in the state system. Cheongdo was exploiting that crack of distrust, digging deeper every day. With limited time and resources, Beck and his crew had no choice. Whatever Cheongdo was plotting, they had to intervene. That was the best they could do. Meanwhile, Cheongdo sent workers to clean up the massacre, erasing traces of the gangster and blocking police investigation. They labeled the incident as nothing, burying it under silence. But Jimin was already moving. Disguised as a civilian, she brushed past one of the workers, stealing his phone without him even noticing. Later, she met Yisu and Jun, showing off the stolen device. Yisu was impressed. She pulled it off flawlessly. That same night, the massive gangster was once again tearing through police like flies. But this time, the blonde boss appeared, disguised as an officer. When the brute swung at him, the blonde boss blocked effortlessly. Turns out, this blondie wasn't here to kill him. He wanted the massive gangster to join them. Back at the hideout, Dr. Lee hacked the phone Jimin had stolen. Inside, he uncovered the location of the drugs Jack had hidden. Meanwhile, the police had already received intel about the container. They saw it as their chance, gathering a raid squad in one place. But instead of success, they ran straight into the massive gangster, the same brute who had butchered officers before. Guns didn't matter. He tore through them mercilessly. Jimin couldn't understand why they had to get involved. We have nothing to do with drugs, she argued. But Hannah disagreed. She explained Cheongdo's real plan: neutralize local police power, create a security vacuum, then spark a gang war. Beck added that Cheongdo's agents would show up at the scene too. Beck laid out the plan. No full frontal clash. They'd crush the momentum instead. Destroy the container, break Cheongdo's will to carry out the operation. The team would split again. The gangs would move within 2 days. Elsewhere, another gang boss held one of Jack's men hostage to confirm the drugs were real. Once the hostage admitted it, he started talking, saying that just like Gyeoksapa, their gang too would someday be wiped out. But before he could finish, the police butcher stepped in, beheading him instantly. Turns out, this massive brute was working for the boss himself. Bloodthirsty as ever, we'd already seen what he could do to the police. 2 days passed. Gangs swarmed like flies, desperate to seize the container. Soon enough, 2 gangs clashed, and war erupted. Cheongdo's agents were already there, waiting for our party to arrive. Jimin struck first, cutting down one of the gangs. From behind, Yisu arrived, finishing off the rest. Their mission had 2 objectives: stop the gangs from securing the container, and if Cheongdo's agents appeared, take them down. And then the agents made their move. They hurled heavy containers at the duo. Jimin and Yisu reacted quickly, dodging and stepping back up. But in the chaos, they were separated. 2 masked agents revealed themselves. Yisu froze. His body locked up. These were the same kind of men who had killed his father. Memories flooded back, paralyzing him. But then, Yisu slammed his head against the container, snapping himself out of it. Now the tables had turned. This time, it wasn't Yisu being hunted. It was the Cheongdo agents. Jimin was alone, and she knew she had to get back to Yisu. But that wasn't going to happen. The police butcherer was here. Now it was clear why Cheongdo had approached him. Still, even facing such a massive brute, Jimin was unfazed. She'd taken down men like him before. He dashed at her. Jimin dropped low, throwing a knife, but the butcher dodged easily and countered. She shifted to the side, using a nearby container to keep her momentum, preparing her next move. Meanwhile, Beck, Jun, and Hannah were closing in on the drugs container. Suddenly, one of Cheongdo's agents blocked their path. The moment Beck saw this old man, he knew what he was dealing with. He quickly devised a new plan. Beck would face the agent himself, Hannah would push toward the container, and Jun's mission was to find Yisu and Jimin. This wasn't just any agent. This was Choi GWI, top executive of Cheongdo's security department. GWI made it clear he was here for his own business. He explained he was only loyal to his former master, then asked Beck directly, "What are you planning to do with Yisu?" Elsewhere, Hannah was cutting down gangsters left and right, stopping them from reaching the container. One of them recognized her. She was among the nameless ones who had killed Jack and his men. Another tried to flee, but was cut down by Cheongdo's blonde agent. Now Hannah and Jun had to face these 2 agents head-on. Back with Yisu, he was holding his ground against 2 agents, but struggling. Whenever he focused on one side, the other stabbed from the opposite. As one lunged, Yisu remembered how his father fought. He tried to mimic him, counterattacking, but the agent blocked it. Then the female agent struck from behind, her kusarigama wrapping around Isu's axe, locking him in place. Vulnerable, the second agent moved in for the kill, but Isu refused to accept death here. He remembered the brutal training his father had forced on him when he was younger. That fire lit inside him again. With sheer determination, he broke free, ripping himself out of the trap. He wasn't giving up. Not now. Not ever. Plot twist incoming. GWI looked at Isu and called him Cheongdo's bloodline. If that's true, then everything changes. He pressed Beck, asking if he planned to split Cheongdo in half with Isu and start another fratricide tragedy. But Beck wasn't interested in family dramas. He admitted he once believed Cheongdo could be an alternative to the rotten government, but over time he realized it was all a lie. To Beck, if they don't stop Cheongdo, people will keep dying. His true objective is simple: end the system itself. That made GWI laugh hysterically. He mocked Beck, saying he talked about changing the system without understanding the consequences. Then GWI drew his spear, ready to face the captain head-on. Back with Isu, he had broken free from the trap. The agents were stunned by his sudden force. They slashed at him, but this time Isu kept up. Even when the woman attacked from behind with her kusarigama, he reacted in time, thanks to Hana's training, which had sharpened his reflexes against faster opponents. Isu pressed the momentum, found an opening, and landed a clean hit on one of the agents. The woman quickly grabbed her companion and retreated. Meanwhile, Hana and Jun faced their own battle. Hana ordered Jun to find Jimin and Isu, while she stayed behind to deal with the blonde boss and his companion. The female agent dashed at Hana, but Hana cut her down instantly, 2 clean pieces. Hana was strict with swordsmen, and she showed no mercy. The blonde boss smirked, boasting that he had trained for years under Cheongdo's best swordsman. Then he lunged at Hana, blade flashing. Back with Jimin, she leapt midair, aiming a kick at the massive butcher's face. But he anticipated it, grabbed her leg, and smashed her into the ground. Jimin rose quickly, throwing multiple knives, but the brute swatted them aside like toys. Then he grabbed her face violently, lifting her up, ready to deliver a fatal blow. Hana and the blondie clashed, steel ringing out. But from the very start, it was clear Hana was far superior. Her swordsmanship was sharp, precise, and overwhelming. She even grew bored mid-fight, mocking him by asking who had taught him to wield a blade. The blondie lunged again, but Hana blocked with ease. He tried to change the rhythm, throwing a knife that cut into her shoulder. Hana didn't flinch. She countered instantly, slashing both his shoulders. She found it pathetic that he was mixing grappling techniques into swordplay. Her killing intent rose even higher, her strikes sharper, deadlier. The blondie barely managed to dodge her next attack, which would have been fatal. Meanwhile, Jimin was in trouble. Dizzy and weakened, she was about to fall when Isu and Jun arrived, saving her. Jun ordered Isu to get her out of there. The butcher lunged to stop them, but Jun stepped in, blocking him with his tunfas, holding the brute back. As for the captain, Beck was locked in combat with Choi GWI. Beck swung wildly, unable to predict where the spear tip would strike. GWI exploited this, countering with multiple thrusts, pressing the advantage. Yet Beck held his ground, refusing to give in. And elsewhere, one of Cheongdo's higher-ups received word. Choi GWI was moving on his own. The higher-up frowned, wondering what this old man was scheming. We get a small flashback. Hana and Jimin as children, under Beck's care. Little Jimin once called Beck dad, because she'd heard someone say a dad is someone who takes care of you and loves you. And that's exactly what Beck did for them. But Hana snapped. Furious, she pinned Jimin to the ground and warned her, "If you want to live, never call that man Beck a dad again." Back to the present. Isu was carrying Jimin on his back, running through the chaos, chased by thugs. Eventually, they were surrounded from all sides. Thankfully, Jimin handed him a flash grenade. Isu pulled the pin, blinding their pursuers, and the two escaped swiftly and safely. Meanwhile, Jun was still holding his ground against the butcher. The brute grew curious. Jun and his companions weren't mercenaries, weren't police, weren't gangs. Who were they? As their fight raged, we shifted back to Beck. He was struggling against GWI. The old agent taunted him, saying Beck had always been soft, that he couldn't protect the people he was supposed to protect. That struck a nerve. Beck lost his temper, going all in, shouting at GWI to take those words back. And Hana, her duel with the blondie was pure dominance. She opened the container beside her, revealing an insane stash of drugs. The blondie pulled out a gun and fired, but Hana reacted instantly, slicing the bullet midair. Yeah, she's crazy when it comes to swords. More thugs rushed in from behind. Hana tossed a grenade into the container. The explosion was massive, flames consuming the drugs. She turned, walking away, leaving destruction in her wake, whispering her goodbyes.